Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, 15th of August, 8 a.m. London time. Current market analysis webinars, which are regularly held on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Do remember, they're for education purposes only and not intended as investment advice. Take a moment to read the risk disclaimer. Trading is risky. You should know what you're doing before you start. And take a moment to understand that, please. Those of you who have been to my many webinars, I'm not going to explain this. On previous ones, I've explained my experience and what I've done in the past. I want to really get straight to charts, basically, because that's what we're here for, market structure. So the agenda for this morning, it's going to be about 30, 35, 40 minutes, depending on questions and any particular charts you might want me to look at. I'll show you how I do a top-down approach, looking for trades right down to small time frames, utilizing higher time frames. We're going to look at some news that might affect markets today, something to look out for, maybe for the rest of the week as well. We'll just do a little bit of a skim through the calendar. I'm also going to introduce you to those of you who are already members of the Plus Zenfinex tools. I'll just quickly show you a couple of those things and how to access it. Underlying all of this is they're free. They're worth checking out. See if they can enhance your own trading. See if they can, add another tool for you. Here's the URL. Repeating it again, it's absolutely free. Just join up. The whole purpose really is to help you educate yourself with some decent tools, which can, have a positive impact on your trading. We're going to have a look at a couple of things, trading views and featured ideas. These are tools within the dashboard, which, has analyst views in terms of, how they see the market. And they're really used as education tools for you to see how other traders view the markets and see how that chimes with you and anything that you might be missing in your own knowledge bank. And we'll cover featured ideas, which are actual trade setups and with stops, targets, and entry points. And we'll look at that later. But I like to get straight to charts because that's the best thing. Right, before I go into market structure, I did some analysis last week sometime. And we were, and this, by the way, this is gold on a 4-hourly. We were stuck in a sort of up and down range, and we were around the middle of this. And I said, look, if this breaks down, it can do one of two things. It can either break on the upside, and this is, I marked out where my targets, where my, take profits were, first take profit, second take profit, and where I'd be looking to take the trade. I also did the opposite in terms of what might happen if gold continued in this downward channel. We did a whole top-down approach on how we got these levels and how we utilize these levels from larger time frames to drill down right into smaller time frames. But what I'm really trying to show in this particular chart here is, and when we did our forecast, we not only forecasted the fact where our entry point would be, we forecasted where we would take our first profit and our second profit, and look, it's hit exactly, probably to the pip. So I marked this line out here. It's literally gone to the pip. And the way I'm able to do that is the top-down approach. These lines here are based upon higher time frames. And let me just zoom out so I can show you how I came to these. Look, so this second target here, let's do the first target first. The entry is quite clear. It's a retest of a consolidation zone. Came down, didn't quite hit our first target, had another go. For those who missed out the retest, came in again, went straight, within a very short period of time to our first target, and in the last couple of days, hit the second target. So look back at the videos that I did last week and look how we approached and how we came up with this trade idea, and the trade idea panning out exactly to the pip. So the point I'm really trying to make is simplify your approach to trading. Try to avoid too many indicators and too many confusing things. Just use a very, very simple process, which is look for turning points, look for consolidation zones, look for channels, and then start marking up where you would like to, enter these trades, basically. So on that, let's have a look at some more instruments and show you how I do this. I'll leave this up here, but let's look for, and by the way, if there's any requests, any charts that you want me to look at, please don't hesitate. I might just look at an index, actually, because I haven't done an index for a while. And before I do that, I want to look at the US dollar index. So let's just create a new chart for that. Why is the dollar index so important? The dollar index is not a currency per se. It is actually an index of just the US dollar. So when you're trading the British pound or gold against the US dollar, it is important you just keep an eye open on what is happening to the dollar index. And if I go to sort of a slightly longer time frame, let's see, across, maybe I can't do weekly, maybe I'm stuck with dailies for now. Let me for a second. Right, for some reason it doesn't like. Okay, here we go. And let's go to the smaller time frame. That might be easier. Okay, so we can do hourly very easily. Let's do 4 hourly, see if that moves around. Yeah, it's got some limited data. It's probably only got August at the moment. But the point I'm really trying to make is, and I think I've got a video on market structure in the Zenfinex portal about the importance of understanding correlations, understanding the impact on different currencies which are paired with the US dollar, right? So the US dollar, this is the raw US dollar index. And if you compare it with another, let's just move this out of the way for a second. If you compare that with another currency, and I'll just use Euro USD. Before I bring up the Euro USD, let's just have a look at what's happening. Right, so we've had a peak, and I might just draw some lines in here, just from a daily, sorry, it's a 4 hourly perspective. So basically, markets moved up, and it's in a kind of sideways pattern. If I actually went to the bodies, we'd get a smaller range, right? So we've had a spike on the dollar. Now, if I go to the euro dollar, this is the dollar. If I go to the euro dollar, right, we're going to see how the euro has been impacted by the dollar. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is the dollar is the second instrument. So the first instrument, euro, is showing a downward, in fact, it's consolidating as well. If I go to make sure I'm on the same time frame, that was on the 4 hourly. Let's go to the euro dollar 4 hourly. And what I'm trying to show you here is how to utilize the dollar index as a guide to your currency trading, because a majority of the currencies that you might be trading, particularly the majors, it'll have a dollar component to it. In fact, I might just get a different, a naked chart, and we'll build it from there. And I'll get rid of some of my trades that I've taken in the last couple of days. It's shown in these arrows, up about 3% so far. So let's look at the dollar and mark out, as we did for the dollar index, the recent peak high, recent peak low. And I think we then, if you recall just a few minutes ago, we kind of went to the bodies rather than the wicks. So the euro dollar is stuck in this sort of sideways pattern here. If we go to the dollar index, it's showing that same, but this is going up. The euro dollar is going down. So there's an inverse relationship. And the way to understand this is that because the dollar, as I just said, is the second instrument, the euro is the direction, the dollar is kind of the secondary part of that move. So when the dollar is strong, let's have a look at it from a slightly bigger perspective. So the US dollar index, generally speaking, I'm not looking for trade setup. I'm just drawing a crude line here, right? Just so you can see. So the dollar has been increasing from a 4-hourly perspective from the peak of 10th of August. And if I go to the euro dollar, what has it been doing? It's been going down from probably a little bit further back. So just make sure, let's go to the 4-hourly. Just redraw this line. Just bear with me for 1 second. I'm actually going to try to keep the same kind of scaling if I can, because that way there'll be like a like for like. Right, so we got rid of some of those lines. Let's put those back quickly. So we had this peak low, peak high, and we're trapped in this. But the important thing is the euro dollar, remember, we're not looking for a trade. I'm just trying to point out direction, has been going down, right? The dollar index, 4-hour time frame, peak to trough. If I make it exactly the same here, we'll see it's consolidating. So you can utilize the dollar index as a indication of what is happening to the currency that you might be trading. For example, the euro dollar, it has an inverse relationship. So when the dollar index goes up, the price of the euro dollar goes down. And the reason for that is it's the dollar that's influencing the value, predominantly influenced by the dollar index. So whatever currency you may be trading, and let's just look for another one. Here we have the British pound. British pound against the US dollar. Therefore, the dollar is the second instrument. Have a look at how the consolidation is the same, and the direction is down because the dollar index is going up, and therefore the two that we're comparing it with are going the opposite direction. So you can have a look at the dollar index as almost like your reference. You can look at it and say, okay, is it getting stronger? Is it getting weaker? How will that affect my currency that I'm trading, one of the majors, for example? And no matter which currency I look at, let's look at another one. Let's look at Aussie dollar. Let's see if that's in here. Okay, I'm going to need to add the Aussie dollar in here. So let's just go to the majors. Here it is here. And let's see what the Aussie dollar is doing against the dollar index. New chart. What do we see? We see that consolidation zone. And we see exactly the same thing, right? Consolidation, downward move. So what is this little exercise telling us? This exercise is telling us is that if we do not pay attention to the dollar index, right, and we just blindly trade one of these, one of the majors, and not reference the dollar index, we're missing a little or a very useful item index that can help us, making sure that we roughly try to get in the same direction. Obviously, I'm not talking about a strategy. I'm just talking about the dollar index strength and weakness and the impact it has, for example, on the dollar, on the Aussie dollar, on the British, sorry, not that one. Where's my British pound on the 4-hourly? So I'm trying to compare apples to apples, right? Down. So clearly, the dollar index is something that you should pay attention to. And more so that if you are taking trades, let's say on the Aussie dollar, you're going long, and you're going short on the British pound and the US CAD and what have you, anything that has a relationship with the dollar, you could just be doubling up on. So, for example, let me step back a little bit. If I'm going long the British pound and long the euro dollar, right? Effectively, I'm going short on the dollar index, and I'm doubling up. So that doesn't make sense. So this is just another way of looking at the dollar index to make sure that the trades you are placing on currency pairs that are linked to that particular currency pair, that you're not just simply doubling up, right? They're not 100% correlated because of the added element, for example, the British pound element to this particular currency, or the Aussie with the US dollar. So there is an element there, but predominantly the dollar index will be determining, the main direction. I hope that's useful in terms of understanding how, when you're trading multiple currencies, that you don't make the mistake of going long against the dollar, short against the dollar, and thinking that you're taking a direction on your strategy. But if you don't have any reference point on what the dollar by itself is doing, I think you're missing an opportunity to understand how price moves, how correlations move, and how you can fine tune the instrument that you want to trade, if it's a dollar paired instrument, and how can you can use the dollar index to be one of your guides. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. Are there any questions on that? See a few people in the room. No questions. Hopefully I've explained that quite well. I'm now really just going to go over to the Plus Zen for Next portal, because those of you who watch my webinars on a regular basis, I use the calendar a lot, because what I want to do is see if there is any news coming out, or news reports coming out, that might actually, I'm not talking about news reports for those who are new to trading, economic reports. These are scheduled reports that are produced by central banks and governments to give announcements about. Let's have a look at this week, and I'll try to explain those a little bit better for you. So if we look at just this week's news items, right? So August the 15th today, we've got some euro dollar news coming out. I think, let me just make sure that's correct. Yeah, so we've got some euros and retail sales coming out later today. I just want to double check something here. Just bear with me for a second. Yeah, so we can look in advance of news coming out for the rest of the day. For today, the 15th of August 2023, we got some German economic sentiment index announcements. There's a forecast, there's the previous month, and probably more important, I would imagine, would be the retail sales coming out later this afternoon, 1:30 London time. And so we can have a look a bit more closely with these plus tools and dig a little bit deeper into retail sales as they were announced in July, and the impact that a news announcement, which started at this point here, and how the news, anybody who's traded news knows that it's quite a volatile time straight after the news. And you can utilize this tool in a number of ways to see last time the news came out, which was actual 1.49 was higher than the forecast, and the previous was 2. So if we just look at what we're looking at today, this afternoon, we're looking at previous. So retail sales were down, and they're expected to be further down. what impact will that have on the dollar index that we just talked about, and the paired currencies like the British pound, the US dollar, the Canadian, and all the others that are paired with the US dollar, clearly are going to have an impact. So if we just go and look at some of the tools that, let's get this one here, price chart. Let's look at price chart. And what this price chart does, it goes back in time, all the way back to 2018, and it plots the news items that came out and what subsequently happened, right? So the last one we can see here was July the 17th. The actual was higher than forecast, which pushed the value of the euro dollar from a daily perspective down. So now that we have news coming out today, what impact will that have? If we go back further to June the 15th, the actual was higher than the forecast, and it had and the point I really want to make at this point is that it's not a direct correlation, right? What it is just purely you doing some research before the news comes out and say, okay, in the past, what happened when the news came out, when it was above forecast or below forecast? And that way, you can start preparing yourself for what might happen this afternoon. Either if you have a trade already running or that you're looking to get into a position, by utilizing some of these tools, you can actually do a little bit of forward planning and say, okay, last July the 18th, right? Forecast was 1.1 and retail sales was higher than forecast and lower than previous. Well, we've got a slightly different scenario here, haven't we? The scenario we're looking at the moment was the previous was 1.5 and they're expecting retail sales to fall. What impact will that have on, let's say, the euro dollar or any other major instrument? And what you're able to do with this tool is just go back and, depending on the tool that you want to the instrument that you want to trade, you can actually look and see what impact. So if we look at the USD GBP, the British pound or the US dollar against the British pound went up, right? So really nice tool. Let's get back to the euro dollar. Sorry, I should have really shown you the GBP USD because that's the instrument that's traded. It fell after last month's announcements, which were previously 2%, forecasted to be lower, but were higher than forecast. And that had a negative impact in the 4 hours after the news item. So those of you who are news traders, you can really utilize this tool to get some idea that if news and when news is announced, what happened previously to an instrument that you might be interested in trading, whether it's the euro or the British pound. And you can go a little bit deeper and say, well, okay, what happened straight after that news? Well, when June 18th, retail sales came out, prices immediately went down. We can see here this event caused a price range of about 26 pips. And then in subsequent, like for 1 hour after that, it had a bit of a rebound. And 4 hours of the event, after the rebound, after a retest, we've just been talking about consolidations and breakouts. Well, this is the retest and a really nice move down. So these tools are really useful for that. I'm just going to check to see if there's any questions. No questions. And I'm just going to have a quick look at the two items that I mentioned, TradingView. Second to load up. And what TradingView does, it lists a number of items, a number of instruments that you might be interested in trading, and it will do a bit of an analysis from a short-term perspective. So this is looking like a 30-minute British pound chart today. This was at 9:24 Central Eastern Time. And what they're predicting, or their analysis is showing, that there are some price targets. What they're really saying here is intraday on the upside, long positions above a certain price. In this case, it's 1.2665 with targets at 1.2735 and an extension. So they're plotting out the reasons why they think it's going to go up. They're giving a bit like I'm doing on the chart, but I'm kind of doing it in real time. And my tools don't include any of these moving averages or Bollinger Bands. I won't go over that. Some people use them, some people don't. It's not for me to say which is better for anybody else. I know what is better for me. So you can go to different instruments and look at, what their trading ideas are or their trading views, and you can actually learn from how they're positioning themselves based upon their indications. And if you go to featured ideas, click on the featured ideas in the dashboard. Remember, this is free, so it's worth your while spending some time just seeing how other analysts, other traders are looking at markets. For example, here they're looking at, let's look for a major rather than, this is silver. Which one should we look at? Let's look at the euro dollar, bullish, right? So from a 1 hourly chart, they're looking at prices to go up based upon, and I'll read it out as it's written here, euro dollar forms engulfing line bullish pattern. There's a little narrative about what that means. So it's a great learning tool. And it's kind of laying out where they think the euro dollar will go. Does it say when this was published? So this was on the 15th of August at 2 a.m. GMT time, so about sort of 6 hours ago. They identified this pattern on a 1 hourly chart, and from that they're creating a bullish. So it's a good way for you to utilize this platform. Whether you've got your own strategy or not, or you're trying to develop your own strategy, you can utilize some of the tools here to help you along the way. I won't go into all these. I don't have time. I've only got about 3-4 minutes left. Let's see if there's any questions. No questions. And so so if you want to ask me, which ones do I use the most? I use the economic calendar every single day. I'm able to look at what's coming up today. I can look at what is going to happen tomorrow. So we've got some inflation numbers, clearly going to be important for the British pound. They're kind of forecasting that inflation is just topping out lower than it was previous. Now, if I go to here, and those of you interested in UK inflation, the last time it was announced was July the 19th. And here's what happened to the British pound, because it was forecasted to be 8.3, but actual was 7.9. So if we look at now, there's the 7.9 from the previous month. Here's what the forecast, predicting it to go down. And last time it went down, right, it had an impact on the British pound. So you can start taking or learning how to utilize these new news items to help you in your own trading. I hope that was useful. So we've covered a couple of different things. We looked at the gold analysis that we did a few days ago and how it panned out exactly. We looked at the dollar index to see how we can utilize the dollar index when we're trading major pairs against the US dollar. We can utilize it in a number of ways. Go back and watch that and talk about how I can utilize it and how you might be able to utilize it. We looked at the free Zenfinex portal. We looked at one of the main tools, which is the economic calendar, and how previous news was impacting the price of, for example, in this, and how price might move against the British pound. We got some FOMC minutes coming out. This is tomorrow. Let's go to Thursday. Right, so we got, actually, let me just do it by itself. So Thursday, employment change in Australia. We got some leading indexes, initial jobless claims. So you can start mapping out and planning your trading week and see what are going to be the things that are going to affect your trading, or the instrument that you're trading, I should be more precise. So there are videos on how to utilize these on the ZenFinX Plus portal. I'll just go back to the URL so you know how to get to it. Let's make sure that we get to the right slide. Second. There we are here. So that's where the tools are. They're free. Showing you how to sort of have a look at them briefly. I'll be back on Thursday, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. Thank you.